Welcome to the 20-Minute Gamer channel. I'm your host, Nick. Now imagine a strategy game that throws out traditional experience and rigid class structures. Experience isn't earned by leveling up, it's learned through action. Your units adapt based on what they do and who they become, not what a menu allows. And instead of being locked into a class forever, they move fluidly between roles, carrying every lesson with them. Well, that's exactly what we're talking about today. The game is Burned Horizons, and I had the opportunity of talking to two of the minds behind this title. Now, we're going to get into that interview in just a quick second. What this game aims to do is completely throw out the traditional method of experience game and class structure and give you the freedom to build your team and run your game how it needs to be run without forcing you into selecting specific perks, skills, class types. To put it in perspective, if you need your sniper to learn how to become a medic, he can do that. And he can do it seamlessly by you putting him in that role. He's still going to retain all of his knowledge, all of his experience in being a sniper, but as you put him in the role of learning how to do triage, patch wounds, fix breaks, he will begin to additionally learn those skills. I want to go ahead and get into this interview. Details are going to be in the description. The Kickstarter for this game is launching on January 25th. Early access is in April, and the game is hoping to launch sometime next year. Please give the game a look, all right? There will be 2 articles that were posted about the game. The Discord for the developers is going to be in the description. The Kickstarter link is going to be in the description, as well as the Steam page. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the interview. We're talking with Chaos and Gazup here today. They are 2 of the minds behind a title that is currently in production called Burned Horizon. I'm going to go ahead and hand off just some brief introductions. Obviously, the viewers know me. I guess maybe if you're viewing this for the first time, I don't want to be presumptuous here. My name's Nick. I am the owner, operator of the 20-Minute Gamer channel, and I had the glorious opportunity today to be able to talk to these 2 guys. So I'll hand it over to you, Chaos. I'll let you kind of jump in, do just a introduction, who you are, what got you into gaming maybe, and what's kind of brought you to the point where you're developing your own game today.
Well, I have been gaming most of my life. I was in the military, so that's going to shape how I answer some of the other questions. But yeah, I started with Dungeons and Dragons with the dice and paper maps.
Yeah,
and obviously went through the original Jagged Alliance, which all-time favorite. And there's some along the way you play some other games like Dwarf Fortress or Phoenix Point, XCOM, obviously. But then you start seeing, like, one thing that I always found with gaming in general is you were always living within kind of the limits of somebody else's vision. So what they decided to put in and leave out for whatever reasons, you got stuck with and you couldn't do a lot about. And particularly after like 2010, games started using XP more and more to cover over depth they didn't have. And so, yeah, it just got to the point. I did a few big mods for like Fallout New Vegas.
Any really popular ones that people would be like, oh my God, that's this guy?
No, well, no.
Totally threw you under the bus there on accident. Sorry about that.
No, he made them for himself. That's the thing, though. You know what I mean?
Oh. Well, also, too, I'll tell you, though, it's funny. That experience is also what is playing a large part into how we're integrating modding support within the game itself.
Okay.
To make it more foundational, to make it easier. Because one experience that I had is I had a lot of ideas how things should work, but I didn't have the coding ability to make it work how I wanted to, like other people could. So, you start running into games that take away immersion or whatever, and you're like, fuck, man, what's wrong with you? This is a war game, or this is a tactics game, or whatever it is, and there's not a lot you can do about it. So, yeah, it's just, along the way, I got to the point where this is not working.
Yeah.
The system's not working. The way they do it is not working. And it only gets worse because they all do it. So to answer the end of that question is, I got to the point, the last mod that I was working on was a Jagged Alliance 3 one, to introduce some of the things that I wanted to. And even with their tools, it was insanely hard. And at the same time, when you mod, you're still limited by what the devs and the publisher put into the game itself, the structure they built for you.
Sure.
So it got to the point where it's just like this system, because there's too many things to change. The way they do RNG in the game, or XP mill grind, leveling weapons. A lot of games don't have any realistic, when it comes to health. Sure. Actual health numbers. So it just got to the point where this just is not working. So I picked the genre that I like best and clawed together a team from there.
And what's so like two things I guess I'd take away from that as well is, first, props to you for being able to put a team together. It's I don't know much about I'm not a modder. I don't know much about developing, but I've been managing and supervising for at least the last 10 years, and finding people that can work together and actually complete an objective outside of the military, where for the most part it's a forced it's forced cooperation, but finding people who are willing and passionate about a project and able to work with each other, that's impressive on its own. So I think you've kind of, obviously making a game is hard, but managing the team and getting that built, I think you need a massive pat on the back, because that is probably 80% of the fight alone, is just finding good, dedicated workers who want to build the project and see your vision. So I feel like half of the hard part of developing is really done in that already. So I don't know. I could be wrong, but managing people and even developing, just seeing how many armchair quarterbacks there are with games like Star Citizen. Everyone, obviously the game is still in development, but you go on the Facebook groups and you go in the Discord and everyone has feedback, and it's like, well, then fucking get up and apply for a position. Well, it's like, all right, man, then shut up. Okay. Cause you're not there. Yeah. You're not doing it,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally. It's interesting you mentioned that, because that's kind of how I got involved with the project in the first place. I happened upon an article on Turn-Based Lovers about this game Burned Horizons, and I was like, man, this looks fantastic. Like this is the game I want to play.
That's the same article I saw too. Yeah, man. That's the one that brought me into the game and looking into it. So yeah.
Yeah. So I joined the Discord. There was a Discord link there, and then I met Chaos, and we got chatting. I think I left some feedback on some of your designs at one point, and I think you quite like them, and then that's where we just we hit it off straight away, and I was like, I want to be involved in this, and we haven't looked back, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a yeah.
So what about you, cool. Gaz? Where did gaming start for you? And you kind of gave us a teaser as to how you kind of got into the position you're in now, but what's your direction here? Yeah,
so similar kind of gaming history. I've been playing games since I can remember. I had a really crappy PC, and I remember playing Doom 2 on it, and thinking this was the most amazing thing ever. And I started doodling game ideas and kind of learned programming and kind of just played as much as I could. And I think the biggest influence on me related to this project is definitely the old school XCOM games, where they were brutal. I remember playing those games and getting my ass kicked every single time.
And not just because your barrel, would be in the face of an alien with 100% accuracy and you'd still miss, right?
Yeah, exactly. Man, I remember soldiers walking off the ramp of the lander and just getting like smoked straight away. Like just it was and I remember I don't know what it was, like a paradigm shift, I guess, where I realized that games didn't have to be these easy things where you were kind of awarded or rewarded with praise or whatever just for doing some easy stuff or learning a skill. This game didn't care. And then that definitely started something that planted the seed. I obviously played the new XCOM games as well, and the various. I mean, if there's a tactical game, I've played it. The new XCOM games were good, and I enjoyed them, but they didn't scratch that same itch.
Sure.
And that's why the Burnt Horizons article really popped for me, was because I was like, wait, that's what I've been wanting to play this whole time. So yeah, I'm really stoked to be part of the whole project, and yeah, I'm putting in as much love and care into making it a reality that I can.
Yeah, I
don't know if that's a good history or not, but there you go, you got it.
I no, I like it, and I like it because I have always obviously I talk with Chaos and talk with you guys and Lord in our private channel there for the past couple days, but I was in the Army and I have always gravitated toward military focused games. Like I've loved that element because it's a very it doesn't feel forced, and even though there can be stories, there doesn't necessarily need to be a story. It's one of those things where I know I can kind of get in, get some action, and really kind of enjoy a dynamic in a game that gets me going, right? Something I like to see. And so a milsim turn-based strategy that isn't overly cartoony like XCOM has a different learning tree or skill tree, so to speak, of which we'll get into again here. We'll get into in a little bit through some of these questions, but that's what kind of pulled me into it. The artwork instantaneously caught my attention. The artwork on the vehicles, the artwork on the characters, then getting into the play test, looking at the animations, the way the characters ragdoll, the way that the enemies take bullets when they actually take a shot. I thought that was really awesome just because there's a very they almost like they stumble, like they buckle into themselves when that round hits. Like it's just there's things about what you guys are building already that I see, and I'm excited to see that finished product because these are the things that are just done already. What else is coming, so yeah, I love what you guys have built already, and I am just privileged to be able to talk to you today about it.
Yeah, man, thanks. I'm glad you said that, because we haven't even got started yet, man. That's just that's us just scoping some stuff out to see where we're gonna go, and the fact that you picked it up, so super cool, super exciting.
Well, getting into some of the questions, I'm just going to start with good old number one. And that's just kind of because you both have already touched on it in your introductions. And it's starting this project, you clearly saw problems in tactical RPGs that you wanted to remedy. There were things that you didn't like, and you wanted to change it up. Giving a brief synopsis of what Burn Horizon is going to offer, what were the things that you saw in those tactical turn-based titles, tactical RPGs that you really wanted to change?
So problems that we're trying to kind of solve in current tactical RPGs, yeah, definitely feeling that idea that around the 90s there was a focus on immersion, and then as we moved into 2000s, 2010s and on, the focus shifted onto XP gains and skill trees and skill points, and basically numbers just rising, kind of for the sake of it. And you could see a lot of people playing games, and I was guilty of this myself. We'd get spreadsheets out and start, calculating things and kind of solving the game. And that's kind of the problem, is the stepping away from that immersion, that simulation, that realism, particularly in something that is a military theme,
Sure.
and tactical.
Yeah.
That was sort of the heart and soul of what these games were, and I guess we feel they should be. So in Burned Horizons, what we're trying to do is bring it back to those roots. We don't have numbers everywhere that you can go and solve things. We've got good visuals. We've got consequences for actions. We've got all those things that immerse you in it, and you feel a lot more connected to your characters, your operators, in those situations than if you were just focusing on the numbers around them all the time. Like, for example, I guess one thing would be swapping out characters, right? In modern games, you would quite happily swap a character out that has like better skills or
Sure.
better numbers, right?
Yeah, right.
But that's not very realistic. That's not something that would happen. You're not really considering the relationship between members in your squad, for example. You're not considering their history, or what kind of situation they're going into, how they work well together, how you feel about those characters. And you wouldn't just swap a guy out, just because of some weird hidden numbers that don't exist. So yeah, it's that kind of problem. Making it a bit more real and feeling the hit of consequences for the decisions that you make for your people.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. No, and that is it's one of those things where a lot of games force you, how do I want to phrase this? It's like there's an excitement in some games leveling up to get to a certain point because you want a skill. You guys are building a game where there's no clearly defined skill tree at all. As they do stuff, they learn stuff, and that skill that they've learned becomes part of their repertoire that can be utilized. So there's hopefully going to be a different level of enjoyment that people find with the title, because it's not just going to be chasing, hey, I've got this heavy gunner and I really want this suppress ability, and it's level 6. I've got to get to level 6, and then once you get to level 6, you've been chasing that for so long, maybe you forgot to actually enjoy the rest of the game. You've concentrated so much on just doing this one task for this one character. And just in the broad strokes of what I know about where you're going with the title, that's not going to be a part of the gameplay here, the core gameplay here at all. This is really just going to be play the game, let your team learn, let them figure out, what skills they can learn, and go from there. Correct?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, one thing it's funny. I was thinking about this the other day. Is a lot of games they have that combination of like XP, and then you've got your class rails where your mage can only learn these skills, and he can only wear this armor, and he can only use these weapons. That it just struck me that that's another part of what in the whole system needed to be changed, because whether it's a magical game, or it's a military sim or whatever, you still have the rules of the world that you're living in, right? So
Sure.
whatever the grounding features of those things are, but yet they still do things that just make no sense. Again, like if you're a ranger, but you can't wear heavy armor, that's not realistic. You could literally put heavy armor on and move around, right? The difference would be how well you did that thing. So
Sure.
a lot of games say if you're this, you've only learned, if you've learned this skill, it's the only time you can have the option to do that. Well, anybody could try to defuse a bomb. Now, the difference in the outcome would be how much experience they have doing that, right?
Sure.
So
yeah.
So I definitely, part of that is we definitely want people to feel like they're the characters they're playing.
The thing worth noting as well, though, is that there isn't, because that makes it sound like there's no agency, right? Like it's all a little bit random
Yeah.
and experience based, which is one part of it. But there is, formal training. So this is a military sim. There's sources of information and training which you would be able to kind of coordinate and navigate if you wanted to, train operators up with a certain skill set. Maybe they've got an aptitude for long range engagements. You could train them up to do that. So we do have the slightly formalized, like school in quotes, a base
Sure.
approach
Yeah.
that could help kind of facilitate and complement that
Yeah.
experience gained from active engagement, for example.
Yeah, and what I'm going to add to that too. That is, I think something that's important. So, players. Let's say that you have a marksman, a character whose role is a marksman. Well, if you have him breaching doors, those are the skills he's going to learn. Like most more close quarters combat, and same in reverse. If you have a breacher, but you have him sniping, those are the skills that he's developing. And one thing very different how we're doing it than other games do, sort of skill progression, if you will, is most of them you pick and choose by building up points, right? And then whenever you pick something, it blocks something else off. But that's not how people operate, right? So the way we do it, you organically learn those skills, so you don't pick the skill itself. But what it never does is turns off other other things you can learn. You don't block off skill trees, don't block off knowledge. But if you want your character to go along closer to a certain path, say like marksman, you could do one of two things. You have him doing things that, or what you want him to build up on, like sniping or counterfire or whatever. Or we have in the game what we call basically mentorships. And it's basically where somebody who's skilled in whatever it is, whether it's marksman, grenades, whatever, that they can mentor characters in the game,
cool.
like training, kind of like boot camp. So
that's cool.
Yeah, very different.
I like
different way of doing it.
Because you think about it's like you always have like in XCOM, right? In XCOM 2, there's going to be a moment where you have a sniper or your ranger, whatever class it is you're playing with, and they're going to be that veteran person on your team.
Yeah.
And I always thought in my mind, I'm like, this guy, yeah, he'd carry the team, but he probably would be like, hey, you don't do that. Hey, you should do this. And it would be nice to have a game that actually implemented something like that. And it sounds like you guys kind of have that on the back burner to get in.
Oh yeah, that's definitely something that's coming. And yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said on there. It's definitely part of the game that in kind of real life that we want people to feel when they play.
So we've kind of so far kind of crushed several of my first questions into one, just in a really nice rolling conversation, kind of about the games that we played being touchstones for you and being these impactful games that maybe you initially wanted to develop off of and build your own project. We've kind of talked about experience and how that plans on coming forward. Let's kind of look at kind of going back to one thing you said there, Gasm, is making it a realistic game. Is there a moment where the realism is there a moment where realism is gonna lose that? I don't want to say realism losing fun, but is there going to be a point in time where the realism of the game is more important than say uh, other aspects? I mean, there's heads up displays on everything. Are you guys going for more of a minimalist approach? Less on screen is better. We want them to feel as real as possible. Or do you guys plan on implementing certain rules of cool, so to speak, into the title so that people do feel initially comfortable with it?
I mean, so
Mm.
the whole concept of realism is interesting because this is a game, right? We're aware of it. If we wanted to go full immersion, we'd send everybody out on deployment somewhere, and they would do it in real life,
Sure,
right?
sure, right? Yeah, yeah.
Which we're not going to do, right?
No, no.
With the an important part of this game is showing what the impact of that actually is, and so we want to try and get as close as possible to that core um, feeling, I guess, core value of the project. There's certain aspects of the game which are going to deviate away from realism. For example, it's a tactics game, right? There's going to be a tactical engagement where it's turn-based. That's not particularly realistic, but I think that's part of the hook and the familiarity that you're talking about. Getting people into the game that have played tactical games before, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I know how this is. I understand turn-based mode. We respect our players. 100%. We know who our audience is and what they know." But then, yeah, there will, I guess, be some pragmatic choices we'll have to make about realism that will they kind of make the game more fun and less tedious to play. We don't want it to be a drag either. I can't think of a specific example. This game's perfect already, man.
Oh,
So,
right. Well, I would add to that. I can give you an example. So we're going to have a lot
thanks.
of areas. Yeah. No, so we're going to have a lot of places where there is deep realism, right? Whether it's hit probability or response time or whatever. But like, for example, I'll give you another modern game, Scum. How Scum, when you eat, you have to micromanage every aspect of what you're eating. All the vitamins, all the nutrients, blah, 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 blah. That's cool. But yeah, that's probably an abstraction we're going to make with reality. So you'll still have to eat, but it won't be, you have to micromanage all the various stages of vitamins.
Okay.
Things like that.
Are you? I mean, is there going to be? Is the headquarters in the game going to be a proper headquarters, or as the timeline of the campaign compiles, is it just going to be bouncing from fob to fob to fob? What's your? How do you plan on juggling that? Because you just kind of think about. In real war zones, right? You usually have an alpha, or from non-military people, alpha is an area of assembly. When you're out in the field, you go to an alpha, you set up an inner cordon, an outer cordon for security, and you operate out of that. It's basically an impromptu combat outpost or forward observation base. Okay, so when you think about games like XCOM, you have your headquarters. You have your giant jet that you're riding on, or your base that you're under, and you build it up, and you get your upgrades and all of that shit. So, where do you see the foundation of headquarters or having an alpha go for this game? Is it just going to be as I going back here, bouncing from site to site? A new headquarters, or would you like to see, hey, we're deploying to this zone, etc.?
Well, a couple of parts to that answer. One would be, so as we go towards from early access, which will start in April, to 1.0, is we're going to be developing what we call our theater. So within each theater, you have like 12 AOs.
Okay.
And then eventually we call those basically RDCs. And you would have as we expand after 1.0, so for example, so the first one is Eastern Europe. The next one might be Central Africa or something like that. The third one might be somewhere in Southeast Asia.
Okay.
So you have all these RDCs, and they're connected in game lore with a kind of an international headquarters, which is set in Riga.
Okay. The
city of Riga. We'll unveil more of that. So basically, yeah, you'll have one sort of international headquarters, but each of these RDCs, which are your theaters, will have their own sort of command, like a fob.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Going into kind of a follow-up for realism, and one of the questions that I know we're kind of excited about, but where do you see this system as far as encouraging role play in the game. With other titles, there's maybe I do this, other gamers may do this, but uh, you try to find a way to connect. I do anyway. Everyone's different. The way I play games is I try to connect myself to the game. And when I start out a new title, like I can't tell you how many of my army buddies have found themselves at the end of a barrel or the end of an alien in XCOM or BattleTech or something. Like I put my personal life into my games. So where do you see the system encouraging role play? Um, where's yeah, I guess that's kind of the end of that question. It's kind of a weird like ending to it. So I'll kind of eat that awkwardness. Uh, but yeah, role play within the title and because of the realism, maybe is it you feel like it's going to be easier or what kind of encouragement do you have for it there?
Well, Nathan can answer it also, but I will just add this one short thing. I think you'll see, for example, in roles like medic, if you develop that character out, they will be important for. So, most games, the way you heal somebody is you have a med kit. It doesn't matter really what your skill is. Anybody can stop a gut wound, right?
Sure.
And that's not realistic. So it's kind of hard to do role playing, and particularly when it comes to tactical games. But one area that we're going to be different here, for example, is so medical care. The medics are going to mean something because they're the ones that are most likely to be able to stabilize and save your characters. I think as characters start developing, or as players start developing their characters, so if you're really sort of developing a marksman and you invest the time to do it, you'll find yourself through gameplay, both through interactions in the world and tactical interactions, that you end up following the role of that character. You kind of do, basically, you end up doing role play.
Yeah, I would add a few things to that as well. I like you say, we want this game to be pretty flexible. We definitely have a vision in mind for the experience the player is going to have, but we are going to be having a lot of toggles and buttons that can be ticked on and off to kind of tweak that experience. Should somebody want to take a more role play heavy approach to the game. Another thing worth mentioning is the scar system. So I think I would liken this to games like RimWorld and Dwarf Fortress or even D&D, right? Where you have control over your character, but there's definitely this world entity that is going to be exacting impact on your character. So I could see somebody who's super keen on roleplay, picking up a character. We've worked on a character creation tool as well, so that might be something people would be able to use. They could create a character. They go out into live fire and they could control the behavior, whether they perhaps want to go into long range engagements. You can role play that as a sniper, for example. But then they may take a wound, right? They may take a shot, and the psychological impact of that will be something the player wouldn't be able to control. And they may form a scar. I'm sure we'll talk about scars a little bit more later on, but they may form a scar. And I think that would feed into the whole role-playing idea quite nicely, because then you, like in D&D, something bad happens, you got to role-play your character through and, figure it out in the way that they probably would. So I think there's systems and flexibility in the game for role-play to actually be a pretty cool way to play it. Yeah.
And you guys just kind of let everyone in. Scars, for the most part, well, correct me if I'm wrong, scars are the learned experiences of the played characters, correct?
Kind of. It's scars are basically psychological.
Okay.
Effects on a character. So, and they can be good or bad. And I know we call them scars, but they could be good or bad because of the result that they have.
Okay.
Right. So one part of psychological conditioning can make you better in combat, less fearful, less prone to break, that sort of thing, which is, as far as fighting a good thing, whereas other ones could force your character to run away, like literally just break and run away. Like so.
So
Yeah.
if your character, if your character is maybe pinned or suppressed too often, they may develop a scar where when heavy gunfire happens, they just hunker down and they have a psychotic break and they don't want to engage.
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing about the way we're developed too is like real life. You can have one psychological event compound with another psychological event and create something different. So it's a system that always evolves.
When selecting your team for a deployment, do you foresee an event where maybe a character doesn't want to go? Maybe they need they need a break. They don't want to actually deploy because they're you're laughing. I feel like I'm touching I'm getting somewhere with this. Do you foresee something like that actually happening in the game?
Damn straight.
Yeah,
Hell
yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the truth is too, because here's what will end up happening. So the setting is obviously the game is that you're a PMC group.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right on.
Yeah. So you basically end up having, it hasn't been built into the alpha yet, but it's coming as we head towards EA, is where you can actually select. So you'll get a certain number of characters that have basically been veterans, right? They're already in the group, but you can go beyond that and recruit others from around the world. And everyone will come in, every character will come in with their own experience. And so not just their military background or maybe their military skills, but the trauma that those characters have experienced themselves as part of their backstory, right?
Uh-huh.
So you could have a character coming in with PTSD and you might not even know it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that.
Those effects will be obvious as well. Like in your scenario, if you still put that guy on deployment when he didn't want to be, there would be a scar, there'd be an effect in the background there that would impact pretty much everything that he does whilst on that deployment. I mean, that's the kind of realism we're going for.
I like that. I don't think I don't think I can think of a game where that's actually been really implemented to that degree. I think that there are plenty of games out there that offer trauma on the playable characters, but the playable characters are still, you know what? I think the closest comparison I can come away with is probably Aliens Dark Descent. In Aliens Dark Descent, when your characters get trauma and you force them to deploy, that trauma then compounds. And the more that it compounds, when you choose to give them to the psychologist to work on those traumas, if you force them into enough deployments, eventually that trauma becomes a negative trait. Like some of them will be like, oh, like he's a drug user now because you force this guy to keep going on deployment and he needs to cope. So not enough games do that though in the tactical RPG or tactical turn-based element. I think they just kind of take it as all the characters are just hardened Delta operators who don't need anything, and that's not real, because even these Delta operators and Rangers and Navy SEALs, PJs, there are plenty of studies regarding the traumas that they suffer after the fact. So, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And one thing I want to add to that too is, and that's part of it too, because I think for at least 15, at least since 9/11, the way gaming has gone is wars are trivialized, the effects on people are trivialized.
Yeah.
You get these superheroes that don't have, trauma from all the experiences that we had, we force them into, whether you're in the United States or Britain or wherever you are in the world. You know, games just basically gloss over that. So yeah, so I think part of what we're doing too is also to show people that war is not pretty. The
Yeah.
effects on people aren't pretty. So yeah.
Yeah, there's a glamorization about war. I mean, there always has been. I mean, it all started back when Chuck Norris was doing Delta Force movies, you know, and it was
Yeah,
just awesome.
yeah,
One man cutting crew, you know, and
yeah,
he's the baddest of the bad. But then
yeah,
not to plug Sean Ryan, but you watch some of his interviews and you see the fragility, the mental fragility
Mhm.
of some of these guys, and even some of them that have come to terms with it. And I'm forgetting his name, but he interviewed one of the Delta operators that was their boots on the ground in Mogadishu with the Rangers during Black Hawk Down, and he told Sean Ryan, and he said in the beginning of the interview, "This is the last interview. I need to get over this. I'm tired of people asking me. I'm tired of having to write books. I'm tired of documentaries. I don't want to talk about it anymore." You know, and I don't think that I think that people assume that war is war. You come home, you get over it. You should be able to talk about it forever. And that's not true, you know.
yeah.
One of my bosses was a Vietnam sergeant major when I worked on base, and he was an old Army scout, and we tried to get a story or two out of him, and he would always gloss over, go to a different place, and say, "Well, maybe that's a story for a different time," and he would just see himself out. Roger that, Sergeant Major. You know,
Yeah.
I there's hopefully some awareness that this game brings in conjunction with fun. But I definitely think that there are some learning points that I hope people get out of this too. You know.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and that's yeah, it's interesting you say that too, because it's part of that deglamorization of war is like one of the subtexts of what we're trying to do. With consequence and showing what war it's not pretty like people make it out to be. Also, I do want to add, because there's one tie into that, something that we're debating whether to include or not, is like, a lot of games when a character dies, one of your characters dies, it's just kind of done, right? They're gone, and that's it, and you move on to the next one. Or they do like, and I think was it XCOM, Enemy Unknown, where when somebody died, they slapped a plaque on the wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
like,
that's in the
what the
latest. That's the latest XCOM 2 does that,
Yeah.
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
like,
I
like
mean,
what the fuck is that? Nobody does that. Nobody really does that. Like,
This ain't the
not to be
CIA, man.
blunt.
There's no stars on the wall. You know.
Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, part of it is,
it's
it's meant to show the reality of war, the consequence of it.
it's a tricky
Go ahead.
balance, though, right? Like this is why we're debating it, because we don't want it to feel like nothing's happened. You know, we want to feel that consequence of a character dying, for example. But we also don't want to over celebrate it and fall into that trap of over glamorization. So we're taking these kinds of things with care and heart. We want to get that balance right so that we do it justice, right? We realize it's a game, but there's more to it than that.
Yeah, and it's crazy that the conversations kind of hit that natural progression into that, because one of my questions was, a character learns through action. Do they also learn through failure? Does the failure also create a scar? Does the failure also define, okay, well, is it possible, for example, is it possible for a sniper to be shit hot? He's one of your best snipers. Maybe you take him out on a mission and he misses a shot, or maybe one of his shots hits a team member, if that's even possible, if that's a direction that can go. I don't know how fratricide and friendly fire will work. Maybe we can maybe touch on some game functionality here in the interview as well. But can missing that shot then screw him up? Will he be less accurate? Will he lose some accuracy? Does failure also help shape who they become?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you've basically nailed the system perfectly there. The I guess the one caveat to that is that it isn't necessarily bad thing happens means they get bad scar, for example. We want the whole system to be emergent and for interesting interactions to come out organically. So for example, it's not in isolation either. So it's not one character has one sphere of influence and that's that. They like your example, the sniper misses his shot. He's shit hot, misses his shot. That's a big confidence hit. There's a chance that will have a psychological impact, maybe in the form of a scar. Whether that is a positive impact or a negative impact is also not necessarily set. They might miss that shot and become more determined and become even better, as an example. Yeah. But then another bit I just wanted to touch on was that it's not just their individual scars or the individual interactions or actions that impact that. It could be that of their teammates. It could also be that of the enemy. And all of that, we've got quite a complex system. Think Dwarf Fortress here. Again, I've name dropped that a couple of times. RimWorld. We want those surprising interactions to come out of it and for it to not be completely predictable, which in my opinion is exactly how it is in real life.
Yeah. Also too, I just want to. Oh, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Because I was gonna trail into something else. Hit it. What do you got?
Okay. No. I was just gonna add too is the way scars can work in this game is there are some incidents that would automatically cause a scar, right? So let's say that you saw your best friend get shot in the face. That could be an incident that automatically triggers that, right? It's there. And then you could have what are basically like marks. They're like tick marks, flashpoints, if you will. It's probably a better word. So flashpoints. So your characters experiences something, and they experience it again, and then again, and again, and again. Those things can compound into a score themselves. So that could go as we build it out in any direction, right? So let's say you have a character who is just an amazing shot, best marksman, whatever, and he does miss a shot. That could cause one of those tick marks, one of those flashpoints. And the more that happens, the more incidents where he, fails, where he's like, dude, I should be doing this. They can form into a scar. And then those scars can compound into other scars. So, yeah, like it mirrors human life.
So with the growth of scars and the development of your team, in regards to the way people play games, you find a lot of people get upset when a win doesn't happen, or God, I lost this guy, I'm reloading, I don't want to lose any of my team members. This game feels like we don't want people to scum save because there's a greater end than just losing one person or developing a trait that you feel is negative. And then 2, the game is hopefully going to be able to be so immersive that saving and trying to force fate to work in your favor isn't really going to give you the enjoyment the game is trying to provide.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't even know what to say in response to that. You're kind of answer that yourself.
Yeah, we
good. Yeah.
I
didn't mean to steal the show here.
No. That's good. I mean, it means you get the game, right? But we don't want to gate anybody out of this game either, right? So whilst that is the spirit of the game, we're going to be building in tools that allow more flexibility. So scum saving is a great point where we don't want them to scum save. That breaks you out of that immersion straight away. So by default, that'll be off. This is an Iron Man game. It's not going to be an easy game. And we're hoping that players will respond to that in the same way they would with like a Souls-like game. No one's playing those games because they're easy. They're playing it because it's a challenge and there's something to overcome there, and that's rewarding. But for somebody who does want to, I don't know, stat crunch, scum save, have the perfect run, whatever that might be in this context, I don't know. We'll build in the tools and the options and the sliders to be able to turn those kinds of things up. And then there'll be a modding community as well. know, we're going to build an entire SDK out where modders can come in and can turn the game into exactly what they want. You know, the same way we've been trying to do with games in the past. You know, we're going to offer those tools up. So my feeling is that people will be able to play the game exactly how they want, and if they're upset with a particular part of it, we hope they'll turn to, you know, a couple of those options or tools or whatever to be able to do it.
Kind of going into how you said that there's not really going to be well, I guess I don't want to say I misheard you. There's not really going to be numbers, stats. We're trying to get out of that
Yeah.
out of that mindset where I'm trying to pad my team and make them as good as possible. I need this guy, and this chick. They're going to make the best team,
Yeah.
right? So we're trying to get away from that format, and we're trying to give people the flexibility. Also, awesomely enough, we're trying to give people the flexibility to say, "Fuck the meta. I'm tired of playing by the meta. I want to play the game
Yeah.
how I want to play the game." Right?
Yeah.
So kind of going along with that format, if you and kind of going along with this line of questioning, if you lose someone, you're not going to give another person on your team the chance to come forward and be the breacher. I get that your breacher went through the door, he shot first, or he was shot first and he got dropped, and now your breacher is dead, and yeah, that sucks. But if you keep going and if you take John Doe and you build him into being your breacher, he may end up being, after 3 or 4 missions, better than the breacher that you lost, just because of his scar setup and what his learned experiences were leading up to that. Correct?
The short answer is yeah. You know, is that I don't want to say that we would kind of expect players not to try and build their best team, right? So, you know, like in real life, in a real deployment, you would try and get the best people for the job that you can within, you know, reality, uh, and build the best squad that you can to go and do the job that needs to be done. You know, if your breacher dies, yeah, you know, you probably need a new breacher. Maybe it's somebody actually on that in that AO that's going to have to step in and take up that role, and yeah, they may end up doing it better. Absolutely. I guess that's kind of the fun of it, is that you know, it could be better or it could be worse. You don't really know.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I would only add to that. Yeah, you know, going back to the numbers thing, right? And you have whether it's XCOM or Jag Alliance or whatever game you play. For example, if you're looking at hit probability, right?
Yeah.
And it'll be whatever percent, or you're looking at durability of a weapon, it's 37%, and it's all number. But humans don't actually think like that. Right. So, for example, if you're looking at your buddy, he's bleeding out, you're like, oh, he's got 47% health.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Like,
Yeah.
right. You don't do that. So you don't see the world. I guess where I'm going is you don't see the world in that way. You might see I have a better shot of hitting it than I don't, or I have no shot in hell of hitting it. Right. You see the world that way. People don't calculate numbers. They don't
Yeah.
build efficiency based on numbers. I mean, they don't build out skills based on, well, I've got 37% this, I can do 38 and get this perk.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You see the
so
world
yeah,
in color, not binary, you know?
yeah,
It's a very, you know, you see blood, all you see is, how do I save this guy? What do I have to do? Who's going to go in and
right,
do it? And then while that's being done, your thought process isn't, hey, you know, I need, and not you, but the guy behind you, you're a better shot. It's not going to be that. It's literally, hey, John Doe got shot. I need you guys pulling security now. It's not a numbers question of, you know,
yeah,
who's got the best hit percentage
Yep.
and who's going to spot, well, who's got the best
yeah,
perception, you know? Like that's not
right,
reality, because I know guys with who I know amazing scouts in the army, okay? But there's always a turn, there's always a chance that someone else is going to out scout them, you know?
oh
And
yeah,
it's even no
Mhm.
matter how good you are. So I love the realistic approach you guys are taking with this, and I don't, like I said, I don't think that I've seen this kind of um, idea implemented in any other game. Not a game that I've played, you know. And maybe I need to get out more. That's possible, but overall, I love the build out that you guys are going with this.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah, so do we. We also haven't found that game yet. That's why we're building this one.
Right.
Yeah, right.
That's just it. It's one of those TikTok questions. If you could build one game and it would be made tomorrow, what game would it be? And it's
Yeah, right.
everyone's always like, oh, I'd build a Division 2 Warhammer 40K skin. It's all 40K open world, and it's okay, well, what about a game like this? What about Burn Horizons, where the real decisions that you make on the battlefield impact your team in a very realistic way, and you have to be smart about the decisions that you make, and you also have to understand that the bad decisions aren't bad decisions. There's no more bad decisions. There's just make a choice, right? And that's one of the first things they teach you when becoming a sergeant, when becoming a leader, senior specialists in the Army. They always say, don't worry about what the decision is. Make a decision. You're on the road. You're getting shot. What are you going to do? Well, get everyone off the road. Great. Get everyone off the road,
Yeah, last thing I want to add about that is, again, all of this, we keep saying realism over and over, because that's really the point, right? You want to show the consequence of war, but also how people interact, like what they can physically do in the game, the choices that they can make, kind of freedom that you give them, but also like going back to the like, is this like, if this character does this and this, does he become a better sniper, breacher, whatever? It's really not, and that's usually how a lot of these games develop their thing out. It's how many perks and skills this character has. Statistically, how are they better? But the way we're doing it, I think, mirrors more like human life is. And you don't look at people like at this stat or that stat. You look at the combination of them. So let's say you have a great marksman, for example. Now, he may be a great marksman, but if he's not good at operating alone or whatever it is, right? Factors, other battlefield factors, other psychological factors, then that great marksman might not be the best choice anyway. And that's kind of how this works, with both who you pick to do what job, but also who you pick. And then the tail end of that is when you lose characters in the game. It's not just, well, Jack is gone or whatever. It's depending on their relationships with their buddies, is that can affect their buddies in turn. The squad's cohesion, and so it's a very, very deep, realistic, immersive system that we're.
Yeah, I mean, some of that is like quite detailed and even high level and subtle in certain ways. But even the kind of really obvious stuff needs to be realistic and immersive. I mean, I know Chaos, you talk about like med kit stuff, right? You know how in most games, someone takes a round and then his bro runs over, dabs the med kit on the wound a little bit, and then he's back up and shooting. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's not happening in this game.
Yeah.
That's not happening. That's a real consequence. That is a very serious situation. Buddy's taking a couple of rounds, might not be getting up, but you might be able to save his life. You might be able to stabilize him. Yeah. How are you going to get him off out of the AO as well? Like, that's your problem, man. You're going to have to make those decisions.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny that you say that. I'm glad you mentioned that too, because a lot of these games, you slap on the little magic heel pad, and they're like, they go from almost being dismembered to, wow, they're back in the fight again, right? That's not really.
It's Disney Bandit.
Yeah, so that's not really how this system's going to work. And it's, as we build it out, we've got, actually, I'll say this. I think our hit probability and our battlefield wounding and our triage, even at an introductory state that we've got it, where we have it right now in the alpha, lays a very good foundation for the very deep system that we're going to build. Because, you mentioned earlier about the sort of knockback stagger effect. And right now that's what it is. But as we layer the next, put the next layer on top of that, if you have a character that's gut shot, they're almost certainly not going to be up moving around, right? And your medic's job is to save that character, basically by stabilizing, stopping the bleeding out, stopping the critical nature of the wound itself. But healing is a longer term process. So yeah, it's going to be a very, very deep system.
Is there a possibility that is there a possibility that a sniper who gets shot, wounded, and maybe taken out of action, when he gets back up and running, could he potentially be less accurate because of a wound that
Yes.
he took? Now he can't shoot the rifle the same way?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Yep,
Yeah.
100%.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what we're going to end up doing too. So right now, as far as wounding in the game, we have a couple different levels of wounding right now, and so that's anywhere from grazing to critical, life-threatening, or just dead. And So you have those. You have your hit probability based in on battlefield equations, right? But then what the resulting wound is, right now we just have bleeding, initial bleeding, and then bleeding per turn. But we're going to end up building things in like broken limbs, incapacitations, limbs that you lose function of either long term or permanently. So yeah, you could have a sniper that got wounded, and now they might not be able to use their dominant arm. So what do you do? Or they lose, obviously, if they have an arm that, if say it's stiffer, you have less mobility with it. It could affect your likelihood to hit the target that you're trying to hit. So yeah, it's going to be a
I mean,
very
that's already in,
yeah.
right? Yeah,
Well,
we've
we
already got that in
don't
the
have
alpha where it's a subtle
yeah,
effect. If you take a wound, it impacts what you're doing. Someone can't just take a wound and then just keep operating
yeah.
as usual. We've even got that
Well,
in at this
yeah,
point, but the system's going to be built out a lot
yeah.
more deep.
I mean, right now in the alpha, we've got the animation for a knockback or a stagger, and we've got bleeding. The next part of that, and also what will happen in the current state is if your character takes a wound, they're going to lose AP per round. Not just that they're bleeding out until the wound is stabilized, but they're also losing AP. And that's kind of mirror if you got shot in the arm or in the shoulder or in the chest, you're not going to be up running around and doing things most of the time, right? So that's the mirror of that. But as we expand the system out, and this is coming soon, the wounds you start taking will, like, for example, let's say that you get shot in the leg or in the abdomen, then it will actually limit your character's ability to get into a different position. So, it will knock them down. And then if it's bad enough, they won't even be able to stand up. They might be able to crawl. And then obviously the long-term consequences of that, depending on the type of wound it is. So it's going to be a very, very deep system.
There's almost a roguelite aspect of it. Just because you lost, you didn't really lose. There's more to the game than just losing. And I think that that's one of the cool things about roguelite games is, yeah, you died and you're back in town, but guess what? You now have experience that you didn't have before. Your character is going to respond differently, based on maybe a perk that's now unlocked. So grab your gear, go out and do it again, and
Yeah.
it's, yeah, when you win in a roguelite, great. Your experience compounds even better, and you get a completely different set of skills that you could pick from and all of that. But, I think that's, I'm not looking at this in the same way that I would look at an Iron Man game in XCOM. In XCOM, there's a
Yeah.
very definitive and absolute in playing an Iron Man in playing an Iron Man game of XCOM. It really is a stressful process. And the way that you guys are building this out, and then the the techniques that you want to implement for how the characters grow, I don't feel like, yeah, hey, great, yeah, I lost my sniper, that does suck, but I don't actually feel like I lost my sniper. I feel like I can get someone else into that role now, and I don't have to worry about recruiting a bunch of recruits and building them up to get a skill class so that they're sniper. And then what if it takes 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 rotations, whatever the cycle is, to get recruits in, and then I've got to train them, and that's not the way it is. If I have to, great. My medic is now the sniper, so
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a really beautiful interaction would be like a really bad deployment. Maybe one operator gets through that and comes back with a couple of scars, maybe a few scars that have formed that have made him a bit more resilient. A grizzled veteran, to use a cliche, I guess. And then you form a squad around that new guy, and then you go into your next one. You know what I mean? Like they bring that experience forward with them, and it impacts all the new squad members around them. And I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, and also too, I think I was going to mention it earlier, and I kind of lost my thought. But one of the things that we're going to do is, so the scars that your characters develop are part of an interaction system that you have with other teammates, other NPCs, etc. Right? And as you're building squad cohesion, that is the abilities of your teams to work together, the members of the teams, right? How much they trust another player. Losses, like for example, if you have an operator that's killed, it's not just a matter of Wolf isn't with us anymore, that now you have to pack up his kit and send it home. And what would come with that as part of an immersive sort of thing is the decisions that they made along the way. Let's say, for example, that you gave that character some kind of trinket or whatever, something that you found, battle souvenir or whatever. So as you're packing up your kit, they could have a letter that you have to send back home, or the knickknacks that connected your character to that one, to kind of show that, again, that you're not just losing somebody, right? I mean, it's just not a character that's gone, and you've got to pick somebody. You got to pick somebody else, and those losses will interact with one another. So if you lose a popular member of your team who's well respected, who's trusted and relied on, those things are going to play into it. Yeah, I mean, it's yeah.
Yeah. No,
you're not losing your sniper. You're losing the person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sure, you can get another sniper in, but Jeff was Jeff, and Jeff's gone.
Yeah. And two, there's it goes back to how the real world works, right? Team members learn how their other teammates respond, right? So whether this one character is prone to jumping the gun or whatever it is. So you learn. So those interactions will eventually start playing into how those characters, react to one another in actually on the battlefield. And the last point to that, something that we haven't talked about yet, or three other things. We've got pathways and specializations. We've got UCD system, and then we've got the S grade system. And all those play into the type of character that you have. So it's not just the stat. Is he a good sniper? Is he a good breacher or whatever? It's all these different real world effects that shape how someone performs on the battlefield.
Beautiful. I'm excited. Like I love the direction that it's going, and I am incredibly excited to see what else gets implemented and to see how the iterations go. Any final thoughts, guys? Like, is there anything that we haven't talked about here that you still really want to go ahead and make sure is brought out? We've got gameplay playing in the background, a couple of still images, art, things like that. But what else about the game do you feel hasn't been said, or a question maybe I haven't asked that you wanted to talk about? Any final thoughts, guys?
I mean, I'll go first, and you can take us home, Chaos. I think we've covered pretty much everything. I think the main thing I wanted to get across was just the spirit behind the game, and kind of make it clear how much heart and soul is going into this. This isn't just a game. This isn't about money. It's something that we're very passionate about, and whatever happens, we're going to make this game, and it's going to do all the things that we've said it's going to do, and it's going to be unlike anything that is out there already. So I'm super excited about that, and just super grateful that you took the time to have a chat with us about the game. It's been awesome.
Yeah. The only thing a couple of things I have to add, frustrated me with other games, in the genre particularly, is the amount of control that you don't have, and kind of, again, living within the parameters of the publisher or the devs vision. And a lot of times that vision plays into money, right? So it goes back to some of our earlier systems, applications, things like that. Is I think a lot of developers, what is their main goal? Publishers make as much money as possible. How much money can I squeeze out of this, right?
Right.
And that's not really like, I'm making a game that I want to play. And I don't really care about how the industry does. There are things that I've noticed in gaming that I don't like or could be better, or things that were dropped 10 years ago. When it comes to systems, it's about making, like, again, putting you in the role of the character or characters that you're playing, right? And what does that? What decisions do we make as designers that put you into that world, and not the kind of glamorized, Call of Duty sort of, pew, pew, bang, bang, and that's all there is to it. I think the systems that we're building are going to be deep. I think the attention to detail as far as the quality of the models, the wounding systems, the interactions, how scars and UCD and S grade and some of these different things, how they put you into that role much more realistically than, a lot of the other games out there on the market. So, yeah.
Kickstarter is coming out. When does the Kickstarter go live? When can people start funding you guys?
Well, they can start following now. The Kickstarter itself launches on the 25th of January. The first 2 days are going to be really important to get our what we call signal boosters, because they help us fight something else, I think, which is fight the algorithms that kind of keep you not visible.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the almighty algorithm that that's my TikTok is I tell you, I look at so much different stuff, and I go to like TikTok and like Facebook Reels and Instagram for things. My algorithm has no idea what I want from it. And I love it. I keep it guessing. So 25th of January, Kickstarter goes live. You can go there now. You can go ahead and wish list and mark it so that you get notified when it goes live. I'll be there when it goes live. I'm going to be giving these guys whatever I possibly can to help funding. Small indie studios like this, everybody, please, you know what it's like. AAA studios keep cranking out the exact same shit, and I'm tired of it. A lot of the games that you see me play on this channel are all... for the most part, they're indie devs. They're small studios. Aliens Dark Descent, Tindaluse, I think, had 30 or 40 developers when the game was released. Phantom Brigade, another great small indie studio. They're not huge, I mean, it's a small studios are making these games, okay? And so we want to make sure that we support them. I will go ahead and have links for everything in the description down below. Chaos and Gaz, I really want to thank you for joining me, for giving me the opportunity to ask 20 questions, have this dialogue with you, and give people an opportunity to kind of see into the minds, I should say, that are creating this title. I think it has a lot of promise. I love the alpha build as I've been playing it already. I know that we are a year and 3 months out, possibly, from where the game will actually hit release. Hopefully we can have a couple more interviews in between that time and just kind of show people, hey, listen, we've implemented this. Fan response was fantastic. Not to talk about feature creep, but we're still implementing all of these things, but we can now implement this. The new technology has been released. We can do that. So hopefully we can talk about this together here again on a grand scale like this, and continue to keep funding going and kind of keep you at the front of everybody's mind so that they don't forget about you. I don't want anyone to lose track of this game. I don't want you to either. So
thanks, man. Yeah, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, if there's anything else you guys need from me, let me know. The rest of you, thanks for joining today. Thanks for tuning in. Once again, like I said, details are going to be in the description. Kickstarter, 25th of January. Burned Horizons on the line here with Chaos and Gasm. Thank you guys again for joining me today. You guys have a great rest of your day.
You too.
You too, man.